Hello, welcome to the Connect 0007 experience. Here, we come to the podcast where human connection is everything. If you're trying to connect better with those around you, you're in the right spot. So please, sit back, relax, open your mind, and enjoy the experience. Hello there, Connect 0007 tribe. I am the host of this amazing podcast. My name is Thaddeus Sims, and today is our 77th episode titled, Are You Ready for This Conversation? That is the title. This was going to be a very different podcast. I know I've been saying that with some other ones, but this was going to be a very different podcast. So in this episode, there will be no health is wealth, but I will give you a fun fact because everybody told me don't ever have a podcast without a fun fact. So there's no announcement, but the fun fact is this. 95% of people text things they could never say in person. Are you guilty of this? I know that I can be, I think I could say I am. Not too much because I'll just tell it to you like it is, but, with tact and grace. But some things it is a bit easier to say in text message, like, hey, I feel as though blah, 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 blah. I don't know. I feel like when you say it in a text message, you have time to think about it. But I always say if it's a very serious conversation, you shouldn't text it. You should actually have a conversation with that person so that person doesn't get the wrong idea. But that's just me. So ask yourself, are you guilty of this? Now, let us dive into this episode because this is a very, very, very serious topic. And I would like to tell you, be warned. Let me say this first before I go into this. So be very warned right now. If you are someone who may have and I'm very serious with this, guys. If you are someone who has just lost a loved one, don't listen to this episode and stop it right now and wait until Friday. I'm so serious. And especially if you are kind of going through something really, really, really deep and it's relating to another person, stop this episode and wait till Friday. I did say there was going to be a guest speaker, but little things happen with our schedule, so that's happening soon. But yes, guys, so again, this is going to be a very interesting topic, and it's a very interesting conversation. So if you are going through any of those things that I mentioned, please stop this episode and move on to something else. Wait till Friday. Now, for those who are like, I'm ready for this conversation, what do you have in mind? That this is different? You're being weird. You're giving warnings. Yes, I have to, because this was a conversation that I had actually very recently with a friend. And if it was not for the passing of my mother, I would not be ready for this conversation. But things happen, and sometimes you have to be ready for certain things. So a great and amazing friend of mine came over. He's like a big brother to me. And so he came over from his travels and he stopped by and we just talked about life. We went through very, very, very deep stuff we went through, and we always help each other out. So I'm just giving you guys a story for this. And we had a very good conversation. And then, the last night he was over, or the night before, whatever, we sat down and we were just talking about the way he does things. He likes to travel and sometimes he just goes wherever. And I was just like, bro, just let me know where you at. Because if something happens, I wouldn't know where to start. I wouldn't know where to begin, where to look for it, blah, 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 blah. And so he proposed this question to me. And he said, have you ever thought of the possibility that I'm going to die? And I was just like, whoa, okay. I never thought about that. I know, our time, everybody has their time, but I never thought about that. But he was like, what would you do? And different things like that. And I was just telling him, like, that is going to be a heavy blow, and many things I said. I didn't ask permission to say all these things, but he knows that this episode is going to be happening. So I said that's so weird. Now, that was just to give you guys a story. I'm going to get back into the story with it, but the conversation, why it's titled, Are You Ready to Have This Conversation, is he mentioned to me that we all talk about life, things that we're going to do, places we want to go, people we want to see, the traveling, our family, our kids, our loved ones, spending quality time, all the things about life. He said, now everybody talks about life, but they forget that death is right around the corner. Death holds hands with life. And please don't take it as, oh, wow, that's a very negative way. But no, it's not. This is like almost a taboo subject that people are not comfortable with. And again, guys, if you're one of those people who are hard-headed and you're not ready for this conversation, stop it. But he mentioned that to me, and I was like, damn, you're right. A lot of people don't really talk about that. And so we had a conversation. So my question to you guys, as in I said, are you ready for this conversation, is, are you ready to have a conversation with someone that you're very close with, be it a very close friend of yours or a parent of, hey, what is it that you desire for me to do when you pass away? That is a very outlandish question. That's something people don't want to think about. Some people are not comfortable to talk about. Like, people are, no, they're not on that. So but it is a very important question it's a very important topic to talk about. I didn't really think much of it, but I was privileged enough to have a mother who would always tell me ever since I was a little kid, hey, if something ever happens to me, I want you to live your life. I want you to be happy. Don't do nothing crazy. Remember what I taught you. And she would tell me that all the time. So when she did pass, I immediately remembered everything she taught me. And I was able to do exactly what she told me. And I would say I was privileged because I received direction from my mother when she passed. Like, I knew what to do. I knew how to be because what she told me, she prepped me for it. So this is a conversation for you all to have with your close ones. What do I do when you pass, right? And if you're kind of like, okay, yeah, I'm not comfortable, like, how does one even have that conversation? Going back to the story, I'm sure he's okay with this, but because he knows. But I asked him, I told him the same thing that I just told you with my mother. And I asked him, I was like, so what is it that I do when it comes, like, if you were to pass, what is it that I do? He said, number one is connect with another mutual friend, another friend of ours. And he said, connect with her. And what you do is do not let my family, do not let my mother, do not let my father, do not let, the mother of his child tell his story, because they do not know him. He said that me and the other friend, we know him. So he said, that is my thing. Like, you guys be a part of the whole service, like, fight your way into the service. Let them know, hey, we knew him, this is what he said, this is what he wanted us to do, things like that. He's like, just do not let them tell my story, because you two know me the most. Yes, they're my mother, and yes, they're my father, but they do not know me like they know you. Like, they do not know me like you guys know me. And he just basically said, he gave me instructions. And so I know now, when the time comes, I know exactly what it is he would like me to do. And by doing that, I honor his wishes, and he gave me instruction, versus if he never told me what to do and it happens and I'm just in distraught, like, I have no idea, like, what is it I'm supposed to do, right? Like, how does one handle this? But when someone tells you exactly what to do when they pass, it gives you it gives you direction. Like, you're going to handle it the way you're going to handle it. Everybody processes things differently, but now you have something to work with. Now, you know, by doing this, you're honoring what the last thing the person told you. And that gives you some type of comfort. That gives you, I can't really describe it to you, but that gives you, the best way I can say it is almost like a clarity, or it gives you something. It's different for everybody. But for me, when my mom told me that, it gave me instruction. It gave me, okay, I know exactly what to do. Though I'm yes, it hurts, but you told me what to do and you told me what not to do. So now I know that by doing this, I am honoring your wishes. And so this is a conversation to have with those that you love, be it a best friend or things like that, because let's be honest, we never really know. And I feel like a lot of us, we tend to not think of it because we feel as if we do think about it, we're going to attract it or something like that. But and I know I'm guilty of that. But having that conversation, it makes things a bit easier and it puts things in perspective. So as me and him continue talking about this, he asked me, what is it that I would like for him to do? And I was telling him, to be honest with you, dude, I feel like I'm going to be here like over 100. That's just me. I just don't know why. I just feel like I'm just going to be here over 100. So I, if we all there, I just say, my thing is just, it would be the same thing that my mother told me to tell other people. Her spirit told me to tell other people during her service is like, hey, just take on like whatever I did for you in our friendship, to like whatever I was for you, whatever, like if I helped you laugh, or I helped you smile, if I brought you peace, the same things that I brought to you in our friendship or relationship or whoever, do that for other people. That way, I feel good because I'm not with the whole sadness thing. Like, do that. That was my only thing that I could say. And having that conversation, it just gives you something to work with for whenever it happens. So some of us may go out earlier than our friends, and some of us may not. But we now have direction. Now, it went further because he said, when I was talking with him, with certain situations with me, he was saying, okay, when it goes into assets, then that's when you really have to have that conversation. So guys, like, one of the things that I had to learn is, if something happens to you, one of the biggest things I learned, something like, and because we don't like to have this conversation, there are some things that we are blind to. So let me be the one to tell you first, if you don't know this. If something happens to you, and let's just say you have money in the bank, right? And a lot of people don't like this whole topic of money and things like that, but I have to be very real with you. When it comes to the passing of a person, oh baby, there comes bills, there comes business and money that comes involved, because when it comes to burying you or cremating you, that costs money. So you have to have these conversations. You have to be prepared. So the ones who have to take on those responsibilities, they know what to do. They have direction. It's not going to be hell. So the first thing is, if you are, let's just say you're a single person or you're by yourself, if something is to happen to you, you need to have, what is the word for it? What is it called? I'm really trying to think of the word. Not an heir, but basically you need to have someone on your bank account to be able to have access to your money when you pass. It doesn't mean that they'll be able to have access to your bank account like while you're alive. It's only in the event that you pass away and that person would be able to access that money. Because if no one accesses that money, then that's going to go back, I think, to the bank or the government or something like that. So even if you are the mother of that person, or you are the daughter of that individual, if your name is not on their account to receive that money, all of that money goes away. So let's just say, because I've heard stories, guys, where people, they had a lady, she lost her son, and he was I guess a businessman, so he had lots of money. So I think he had over some thousands in the bank. And though she was his mother, she couldn't have access to any of that money to use to, bury him and things like that. So That is something that you have to have in mind. I really wish I could think of the name for it. I don't know if it starts with an R. I know some of y'all are already like, oh, we know what this is, but you can probably leave a comment. I can't think of the name right now. Not recipient, but and legit. I don't know. Anyways, look into that. You can Google it. I can't think of the word, but basically having someone who would be able to access that income, or that income, that money that you have in the bank, just in case something happens. Not only that, but if you have assets, to have a will and things like that. Who's going to have this? Who's going to have that? Because if you don't, that's just going to cause issues, and there's legalities. So the goal is to make these things super easy for those who are going to have to take responsibility for you when you pass, right? And so when we had that conversation, it was uncomfortable, but it was just a conversation that I feel as though you have to be very, very mature and or ready to have it. And when it comes to connecting with our close friends, we also have to keep that in mind of what are their wishes just in case something happened. And what was a story or something that I witnessed that my stepfather, I remember walking in outside and he had a conversation with his boys and stuff like that. And he said, so what is it? What would you guys do if your wife passed away, or if your spouse passed away? What would you do? How would you live? And half of them were like very uncomfortable. They did not want to talk about that or think about that. But it's a very serious question to have. It's a very serious conversation to have. And so I'm throwing this at you guys. When it comes to connecting with your close friends, if y'all are super, super close, like they're like your family, ask them, sit them down and ask them, hey, in the event that, you transition, what is it that you'd like me to do? That way you guys have direction. That way you have clarity and you know exactly what to do when the time comes. You're prepared and you're ready. Yes, you're going to have your process, but you're prepared and you're ready. It gives you something versus not. And you tell them as well, have that conversation. And once you have that conversation, guys, though it's uncomfortable, I said that weird, uncomfortable. Once it's uncomfortable, and after you have that conversation, it really does something. It's trying to put this in words. After having that conversation with my bro, it was literally like, okay, this is, I don't know, it kind of locked something in there. It was just like, okay, wow, we just had a very serious conversation. So it did something where it's like, okay, I know exactly now what to do. It's set. I know now how to honor you. I know what to do for you. I have direction. I have clarity. And it just does something. Because when it happens, yes, we're going to go through our process, but it's better to be prepared for it versus not being prepared for it. And also, if some of you who are listening to this have kids, I'm sure you're already on that whole wave, life insurance. I'm sure you're already on that wave of having them on your account if something happens. But for those of you who are like single and you're not even on that wave, you're not even thinking about that, that is something to really look at. That is a conversation to really have with the people you're close with, even if it's your grandmothers, if it's your aunts and uncles and things like that. Just someone you're very close with. You don't have to ask everybody because, let's be honest, some of y'all don't talk to everybody like that. I don't care for everybody like that. Let's just be real. But that's just a conversation. So I ask you, are you ready to have that conversation? And if you're not, it's okay. It is uncomfortable. You may get teary-eyed, you may get emotional, and hey, that's okay. But I would say, to help you, if that's something that you would like to do, I would say just sit down with the individual that you would like to have that conversation and just let them know, hey, I'm going to ask you a question that's very, 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 very uncomfortable. And if you're not ready for it, it's okay. But I feel like as adults, we need to have this conversation so we are prepared. And you just set that tone with them. That way they know, okay, let me put the phone down. Let me not joke. Let me pay full attention. You setting the tone. And then just let them know, like, hey, I love you very much. But let's just say in the event that you transition or whatever you want to say. I don't really like to say die or death. But for other people to understand me, I do. But you can use your own words for that. But just saying, hey, in the event that you transition or you pass away, what is it that you would like me to do? And just go from there. And that person may be very uncomfortable. It's going to be very different, but don't look at it as it's a negative or it's a topic that ew, if we talk about this, it's going to happen. But no, just look at it as I need to be prepared because I care about you, because I know it gives me something to do when when it happens, right? Now, going back to the story with my bro, it went further, and he was telling me about his way. We go really deep, right? We go really, really deep. And I was telling him, I was like, to be honest with you, I could be, and I was like, I don't have facts on this. I could be very, very wrong, but this is just me. So guys, don't attack me. But I was like, I kind of feel like everybody has some type of sense on how they will transition. Like, we're already on this subject, so let's just go deeper. I was like, I kind of feel like everybody may have a sense. Even if they don't want to think about it, I feel like some people have a sense of it. And I was telling him, I was like, me personally, I feel like I'm going to go out in my sleep. I love sleep, but I just feel like I'm just going to go peacefully in my sleep. That's just what it is. That's just what I sense. And he told me, he was saying, to be honest with you, I feel like I'm going to go out in a bang. Like, he was saying, I feel like because of my death, it's going to be a catalyst for something. And then I was just like, interesting. Okay. And this is just us. This is just a conversation that we had and I'm sharing with you guys. So if this is really uncomfortable for you, again, end it here. But I asked him, I was just like, okay, well, random. I know you want me to be involved, but I do feel like your parents are obviously going to have more power in how they would want you to be either cremated or buried and stuff like that. And he was like, I feel like the way that I'm going to go out, there wouldn't be a choice to either bury me or cremate. And so that had me, that did something. It was just like, okay, my mind immediately wanted to go to the obvious, the worst. I'm like, what? So I was like, well, okay, all right, well, and he was like, yeah, that's how I felt. I just feel like it's going to be a catalyst or something. And I'm just like, okay, well, all right, that's what you feel. I can't say nothing to that. I really couldn't. I couldn't say, well, you shouldn't. I'm like, I don't know. I couldn't say nothing. But I was saying, I just feel like your parents would have the say so of, we should be bury him or should we cremate him. I was saying, for me personally, I want to be turned into a tree. That sounds so weird, right? Like, you want to be turned into a tree. I've seen these things where it's like a casket or whatever type of thing, but they put you in, I don't know, this thing, and it's like a seed in there or whatever. And so I guess it basically, it's like a pod or whatever. And there's a seed in there, and I guess it uses your remains or whatever and things like that, and it turns into a tree. So it's like, I'd rather be a tree. That's just me. I was always a nature boy anyway, so I just like, that would be me, I guess. It's different. And so I was just like, okay, so yeah, how would that even go with you? And so we just had that conversation, like, okay, so what is it that you desire? And it is uncomfortable, guys, but once you do it, I feel like it just really just really prepares you for that time, and you just know what to do. And I've been saying this whole prepare thing, but that's the best thing that I got for you all, for how my mother did it for me. For when it happened, it automatically was set in stone of what to do. And that gave me something to work with. I wasn't distraught. I wasn't lost. I didn't lose it. It was just, this is just what it is. This is what she told me. I got direction. So I invite you to, hey, ask that person. And you'll be very surprised what some people may say. Some people might tell you some things. And to be honest with you guys, this is a whole different topic. I don't know anyone who's really talked about this publicly to have this conversation. But I can tell you, I don't believe at the moment there's a wrong way or a right way to go about this. I just do feel like, you should set the tone and just be more open. That's the only thing I can suggest to you. And really just listen, just talk and really listen and see what the individual says in this regards. Again, if this is something you're not comfortable with, by all means, don't have this conversation. But if it's something that you feel, I never thought about that, is something really to think about because, hey, like my friend said, we always are talking about life, but life is holding hands with death. So you need to have that conversation as well. And I'm not going to say you need to, but after that, it is an important conversation to have. I feel, in my opinion, and you may not feel like that is important, and that's okay. That's okay too. So I'm trying to see if there's anything else related to our conversation. After that, after we went on that subject, after we talked about that part with what to do when he's buried, or if he does, and he asked me about myself, we just agreed, wow, okay, now we know what to do. We know how to handle this. And it just made me think of those who are close to me, to ask them these conversations and see where they're at with it, to get direction. I don't feel like this is something I'm going to ask everybody, but it just made me think broader on a bigger term of more than just life, of how to honor them when they do transition. So, and I believe after he said that, because he was saying, yeah, he was like, yeah, man, I'd love for that to be on there. And he was saying, talking about your loved ones, your parents and things like that. I'm trying to see if there's anything else we had with that conversation. I think that was like the wrap on that. It just changed the game for me, guys. And that was something I was like, I'm going to put that in the podcast because it is about connecting with people. And that's a whole different type of subject. That's something that's very, very different. And I was like, I don't feel like a lot of people might be ready for that. So I'm going to put warnings like when I do this episode. So yeah, guys, that is really it. So that is, and there again, there's no health as well for this episode. I literally just wanted this to be just a very conversational style and really just ask you, are you ready to have this conversation? And that's something that you can have with someone else. Are you ready to have this conversation? I would say, for those of you who have kids, if you don't do this, it's okay. But I would say, just from someone who was once a child, if you have kids, I don't know where you're at with this topic, if you're comfortable, but from someone who was a kid receiving it from a mother who prepared them, please do tell your kids what to do when you do pass. And it doesn't have to be something scary, but it could just be like a serious little conversation, like, hey, little one, you just get it in their minds, like, hey, just in case if something ever happens to mommy or if something ever happens to daddy, and let them know, live your life, whatever it is you want to tell them. And just keep telling them that, like, as they grow up, just keep telling them that. And they're going to probably say, man, I don't want to hear that. But I'm telling you guys, from someone who was a child who constantly heard that, it really made a very big difference. So if you have children, please, I'm just saying, I'm not telling you how to raise your child, but let them know. If you feel it led in your spirit to do it, let them know, have that conversation with them where they're at. And just, as they grow, you can probably go deeper into it. And for some of us who don't have kids and we're just living our lives and we're single and we're just doing our things, keep in mind to have someone to be able to access the money in your accounts if something was to happen. It just makes things easier and it just works out. For those of you, you could get a will as well. Even at the age you are, you may think that you don't have anything, but you could start somewhere. I know that my relatives were saying that you could either give it to a cousin, even if it's not much, it's just something that someone would have access to as well. And for those of you who are much older than me and my generation, I'm pretty sure you already know what to do. But just in case you don't, make sure you have a will too. You have all of that in order. If you have major assets, make sure you talk to whoever you need to talk to. If you don't have kids, maybe give it to your nieces or nephews or different things like that. But it's just something really to think about. So if something was to happen, those around you are prepared, because someone's going to have to do some type of work regarding yourself. So just make it easier for them. And I don't think anything with my intuition. So I believe that's it. So guys, with that being said, that is it for this podcast. I thank you for anyone who is able to really get through this episode all the way. Like, really, I really do appreciate it. Matter of fact, if you did listen to this episode all the way, I would love for you to comment on whatever you can, be it social media, a snippet, or leave a comment on this episode or something, and just say, hey, I finished it. Just because I'm very curious to see the people who did finish it. I would love to just know. So, yeah, with that being said, guys, that is it for this episode. I greatly appreciate your time, and I am very grateful that you were ready to have this conversation. So that being said, I will talk to you all Friday, and enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you for listening to today's episode. Please leave a 5-star rating and share with a friend near you. Remember, the world's a better place because you exist. Know your worth and know thyself.